Hello and bienvenue and welcome to Norm, the Cheers podcast that isn't. I'm Mike. I'm joined by Tookie and Dave. We are here every week, every Tuesday at 8:30, except last week, to celebrate the greatest live-action sitcom in American history, Cheers. And we missed you last week. We missed everybody. We missed being together. But somebody decided he hadn't seen his family in a year, and that was important.
The
Not
weird
who he was, but Dave, how was Florida?
it was hot, it was muggy, it was thunderstorm ridden, but yeah, I went down to visit my dad, which was cool. It lacked the emotional impact that I was expecting because he had come up to New England a couple of weeks prior. So really, like, I have no excuse for missing other than the fact that my dad's internet, his wireless setup in Boca Raton is perhaps spotty, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he's in his 70s, and
I'm kind of surprised that the Wi-Fi is spotty where they are, because so many of them are like grandparents who need to Zoom with the kids from up north. So it seems to me that Verizon would be prioritizing the Boca Wi-Fi.
I mean, it's certainly not unusable. I think perhaps that it's so much of it is going to that there's so much streaming of content and meetings and music from the 40s and recipes for pies that sometimes the Wi-Fi is just a little taxed in that area.
You're saying the Music Man takes up some bandwidth.
It's once you want to see Shapoopy in its full HD glory, Buddy Hackett is nothing if not rendered if he's rendered in standard definition.
Well, as long as all that broadband isn't being used up by Neil Diamond's version of
more jazz singer.
The jazz singer.
Damn those that talk of less.
Oh boy, we watched that movie so much as a kid.
It's on Prime Video.
Now that we're all live again and we can be like around each other, I feel like 1 week we just need to take a break from Cheers and all get together and do a live stream of us watching The Jazz Singer with Tookie. Just
listen, I just got Juneteenth as a holiday. Don't do me like this.
I just want to hear what you're going to say about Neil Diamond. Does it make me a bad person that I really want to hear you get angry at Neil?
We'll do the stream.
What's comforting about that movie is that somehow
so little,
like somehow it's all somehow what's his face, Olivier's elderly Jewish father, rabbi, is almost maybe not almost as offensive as Neil Diamond in blackface, but it's surprisingly close. Like, it's not a dead heat, but it's also not like Neil Diamond in blackface doesn't lap what Olivier is doing. It's not an equal opportunity offender, but it's shockingly even-handed in its terrible portrayals of human beings.
Were the opening not so outlandishly offensive, people would have spent more time talking about Olivier setting back Judeo-Christian relations about 50 years.
It's one more thing we all have to grapple with as we move forward in this new normal is our response to The Jazz Singer.
Yeah, I have, you know what? I'll save my thoughts for the stream.
Okay. Nice. How was your week, Tookie?
How was it? I saw a nutritionist.
Oh.
So that's interesting.
Yeah,
to help me eat breakfast because I have, I have to get out of this habit. I don't eat until 1 or 2 p.m. some days.
Uh,
So
uh,
yeah.
Yep.
So I gotta have. So I'm committing for this next several weeks to having a tangerine every morning.
Strong.
I like it.
Yeah.
Tangerine.
Yeah.
It's the orange for classy people.
It is. Did you know tangerine comes from the Arabic?
I did not.
Can't stress to
Yeah.
you enough how much I didn't know that and how much you knew I didn't know that.
I know. So does apricot, alfalfa.
Nice.
Yeah. What else? Sofa is an Arabic
Mm.
word. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We're learning.
I would like to
Thank you our
recommend.
Arab friends. I love sofas.
I'd like to recommend if you're looking for assistance in eating breakfast. Underemployment is a tremendous assistant with regards to regular meal consumption, and I would add to that extra meal consumption. Just
Okay.
meal consumption is something that fills up a lot of hours.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like while we were homeschooling, it's amazing how often I was like, well, Daddy's got to eat something. So why don't you focus on this? And Daddy would be in the kitchen with some chips. Just getting by. Just sitting there by myself with a Diet Pepsi and some wavy Lays, just going, this is going to end, right?
Ooh, the crinkly kind. That's a very fancy choice.
Wavy Lays,
That's
very
sophisticated.
underrated potato chip. I like a chip with some girth.
Yeah, don't come at me with one of these top sheet chips. I don't want a thin gossamer chip.
No.
Okay.
No,
I didn't know
that's
this
what
was
I'm
the
talking about. What am I supposed to be eating a mist right now?
Oh.
I want a chip. I want to feel the heft of the potato and the Irish farmer that brought it forth to me.
You don't like a whisper of spud on your palate?
No.
Oh my.
No.
Okay.
I want to be there with it. Because you know what? Because if the chip is thicker, it makes me feel better about myself.
Okay.
Because when the chip's really thin, like I'm going to get a certain amount of potato in my mouth. And if the chips are thin, I'm grabbing a whole handful and I'm shoving them in there and they're falling and I feel slovenly. And it's the same amount of chip, but I feel worse about myself.
That's the Pringles dilemma.
Mike, this is a lot of information.
I have no secrets from you.
Okay.
What do you need to know about me?
I just wasn't, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready.
I have a lot of theories about food. You get the thicker chip. There's never a good reason to order a small pizza. No. Okay, because a small pizza, look at the price difference between a small pizza and a large pizza.
I've heard this so many times in my life.
Thank you. There's no reason. So, all right, you get the small that'll feed 1.5 people for $8, or you can get the large for 10 and that serves 20 people. What are you doing? What is the pizza going bad? Is cold pizza the next morning not the greatest thing ever? Breakfast problem solved. Right there. Damn your tangerine. We have pizza. It's right there. Like you never regret having extra pizza. Why would you ever get a small?
But I don't. Okay, as a non-breakfast eater, it's cold pizza in the morning. Cold pizza in the afternoon is my jam. Cold pizza,
but whenever you have it, whenever it is,
only under certain circumstances.
Whenever the cold pizza is consumed, it's delightful. It's perfect. Yes. You're welcome, America. Get the large pizza. If I ever started a pizza place, I wouldn't even offer a small. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't let somebody make that bad decision. Mike's one size pizza.
I feel like you can tell how important this Cheers episode is by the
I liked it, to be fair.
I did not mind this, and it has maybe my favorite joke of the year so far.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
a joke I was looking forward to, and I laughed as hard as I hoped I would. So let's jump in and we'll talk more food advice as soon as we are done. Here we are. It is episode 13 of season number 2, No Help Wanted. When this delightful little episode premiered, what was going on in the world, Dave?
I just want to. This episode premiered on January 12th, 1984, and 2 days prior, there was a debut made on American TV, not on a show, but on an advertisement. Really one of the sort of landmark ads of the 1980s, and one of the few advertisements where I feel like the performer in question became famous and sort of known to me as somebody who just appeared in commercials. It was, I can't really think of too many other performers that kind of reached that had that sort of national penetration as a commercial spokesperson. And I'm talking about Clara Peller and the Where's the Beef campaign for Wendy's. She made her debut at the age of 85, I believe.
Was she in that commercial?
She was 85, I believe, when she made, although it's called into question because she was never exactly, apparently, 100% sure of how old she was.
Wow.
She's one of those that doesn't have a birth record, right?
Apparently, she apocryphally, she told a Social Security clerk 3 different ages, and then when they expressed frustration with her, she said, whichever one is going to get me Social Security is how old I am. I'm sorry, she was looked like 82 when she made her debut. She died at 85. But yeah, she had was part of that massive Where's the Beef campaign. She went on to be a pitch person for a bunch of other products. Got kind of, I think, shabbily treated by Wendy's, and as a result, Wendy's went into a 5-year tailspin after they stopped using Clara Peller, and rightfully so, because she is an American original. She appeared on Saturday Night Live. She appeared in a few films. And just kind of had this, and also to bring it back to New England, a Mass Megabucks commercial was her first big commercial break prior to Where's the Beef. So there's a little bit of a regional tie-in for Clara Peller, but I just wanted to shout out Clara Peller, a true American original who had this sort of incredible, bright, fast-burning arc in her 80s. As somebody who has hopefully not peaked yet, I view her as an inspiration.
Nice. Your Clara Peller window is coming up, my friend.
I feel it. In the next 40 years are going to be something for me.
Tookie, can you tell us about the cold opening of this delightful little episode?
So it doesn't seem as though this one had much to do with the rest of the episode. We're kind of breaking the pattern a little bit with this cold open, but it was an interesting one. It was a long form joke, long setup. So rather than the Hall & Oates adjacent riff we usually get as the beginning chimes, we get the opening notes to A Foggy Day in London Town. And we enter the bar. We see Coach at the bar with a little mini radio, listening to that song as it comes on. He says, "Oh, this song reminds me of my wife." And Sam asks, "Oh, was this your song?" And he says, "No, Sinatra sang it, but it reminds me of the movie From Here to Eternity." And Diane asks, "Oh, was that the movie you saw on your first date?" And he said, "No, that movie reminds me of Hawaii." And then someone else asks, "Oh, was that where you went on your honeymoon?" And Coach is like, "No, I've never been to it. It just reminds me of Will Angles, my old Navy pal who introduced me to my wife." Long stretch to get there. And then Moon River begins to play on the radio, and a bar patron says, "Oh yeah, this is the song. This brings back memories. This is the song they played at my daughter's wedding." And Coach is like, "And nothing more." But that was it. And Coach throws his hands and towel up in frustration and says, "That's it? Yeah. Huh. We sure do get him in here, Sam. Cut to credits.
My favorite cold open of the season so far.
Really?
I loved it. I
Really?
loved how Coach played it. I loved how everyone else went along with it.
Hmm.
Just waiting to see if they could put the pieces of the puzzle together first. And I also feel like I have those thought chains sometimes of, wondering about Christopher Columbus simply because we were watching Rocky. It's like, okay, that's how we're getting there.
Huh? What?
Because there's a scene in there
Oh.
where Apollo says, now who discovered, it's 1776, it's the birth date of America. Who discovered America? An Italian. Now, what would be better than to get it on with one of his ancestors on America's biggest birthday? And that starts making me think about Christopher Columbus. And there you go.
Mike, we need to have a chat.
I'm just saying I identify with my friend Coach.
Okay.
And I love how he played it. I loved, I'll take this one, where they're all just kind of on board. And they all know they're going to get there, but they don't know how. And I loved that Coach felt like, you're the weirdo. I loved his response to it. I love that Coach had a little edge this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an edge with Coach, and it started there and it kept going. It was an interesting week because there's basically one A story, but it doesn't start for a little bit, which made me wonder if maybe the beginning of this episode was potentially going to be a cold open. And then they decided, you know what? I don't know that I like it as the cold open. Let's do this joke as a cold open. Because it starts with this woman that Sam used to date coming in and doing a terrible Boston accent with just the one word, landmarks. And just coming in. And there's some funny lines in there, and then telling her, oh, no, Diane and I are together now, and maybe I'll go outside with you. And then she sprays his pants, and then he can't go out. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the episode. It just sort of starts it, which makes me feel like there was the potential of, you know what, if that first cold open doesn't work, this will be the cold open, because there's also at least a couple of sections in there where it felt like some sections might have been cut out later on. I don't know if it vibed that way with you guys at all, but I felt that. A couple of times where I went, that's an interesting little segue into this next section. So I was wondering if potentially that was what happened in this Max Tash episode. Have we had another Max Tash episode?
I don't think so. I can double check.
Yeah, I thought this might have been his first one.
This is the first Max Tash, at least this season. I don't think we had one last season.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe Max Tash wrote it and that was his cold open. And they said, I don't know if that's starting it the way that we wanted to. Maybe that's more the beginning of the episode. And then the writer's room just wrote that Coach joke for the cold open.
It is a weird, it is a weird episode in that way. Structurally, it is kind of, it's funny. And like, I felt like always like a little bit at sea watching this episode.
A little bit. Yeah. It was kind of like we had the cold open appetizer. And then we had a salad, which we don't usually get, and then the main course.
I will say I felt I liked a lot of what Max Tash did, with some really notable exceptions. But I felt like he really didn't do Becky any favors by saddling her with the line, I missed Boston and all of its landmarks. Yeah. Speaking of which, I was like, oh man, come on, like, I get fine. She's struggling with the accent, but I don't know. I don't think Ingmar Bergman could have played that line.
Didn't work. And that was what struck me about this week's episode. So really quickly, Norm is struggling and he's had to take a job up at Melville's washing dishes. Very uncomfortable job shaming from the gang at Cheers. But I do think I'll give Max Tash this. I think at some point they were in on the irony of all these service workers somehow judging Norm, because Coach does have that line about the demeaning job and then saying, hey, pal, get over here. Oh, right away, sir. I think Tash was in on what was going on and the irony of it. So maybe a little bit of credit. So Diane recommends that instead of washing dishes, Sam can hire Norm to be his accountant. Sam very uncomfortable with this. There's a little sex joke that implies that there's something Diane wants to do to Sam that Sam does not want her to do. We'll spend some time on this if it's not going to be wildly uncomfortable. Norm does his taxes. Instead of paying some money, he's going to get 15 grand back from the IRS. makes Sam very uncomfortable. Norm is filled with confidence, loves it, gonna do Diane's taxes. Then they find out that Sam actually went ahead and had his accountant Cy. Dave, I'd like your thoughts on Cy the accountant after I finish the summation. And then they have a fight. They have a really nice moment in the office that I enjoyed a lot, where they're crying and they realize how much they mean to each other and they make amends. And then there's resolution at the end. I liked a lot of this episode. I really did. There's a joke in here. I'll jump to my joke of the week pretty soon because I want to get it in there because I love it so much. And there's a lot that I like about it. I just felt like Max Tash wrote really interesting stuff for men and had no idea how to write for the women of Cheers in this episode. Like multiple weird, uncomfortable moments where the women were just there to serve men's storylines in really uncomfortable ways. And it was bad for everybody. He wrote badly for Diane, who's narking on Norm in a way that I don't know she would. Like just saying, oh, like out of nowhere, I did see Norm coming out of the kitchen at Melville's. Like, well, what did you think he was doing? Like just saying, I don't know. It was very, very weird.
Yeah, that's a really good point. he kind of, Diane is sort of like forced to be dumber than Diane ever is in this episode.
Yeah, and like thrilled about the little kiss on the cheek. Oh, my big man's gonna reward me for making a nice compliment. And she has her little jokes at Sam's expense, but it just felt weird. And the moment with "thanks, beautiful," the pat on the Carla's bush,
I have a lot of issues with.
I would expect so. Yeah. And then she's wanting that loving again. Like, give me that extra fanny pat. That's the one. I just really, really weird.
Yeah. I like kudos to Rhea Perlman for figuring out how to like because I walked away from that interchange like being really, it plays terribly now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also walked away from it thinking like, oh God, I feel like I learned something about Carla Tortelli's sex life.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me uncomfortable that I knew that, but at least I was like, this actor figured out a way to convey something about the character's humanity through this garbage joke.
Yeah.
Right. I did like this episode, but I didn't like that shit.
No. That's why it's kind of a weird one. Overall, there's a lot that I liked about it, but a second rewatch, I realized, he wrote really well for the men and really badly for the women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As you do.
As you do.
Mm-hmm.
Like from the second Sam's ex-girlfriend or former, flame came in and she had weird dialogue and Diane had weird dialogue and Carla had weird dialogue. It was all just very weird.
And then Cliff had some Cliff had a lot to do in this episode for an episode that wasn't Cliff centric. Like there was a lot of storytelling that was given to Cliff, and for the most part, I was like, I kind of liked it actually. But it was funny. But you're right. It was weird that all of that responsibility was kind of taken away from, what would usually be Diane. I feel like.
Yeah. Diane's responsibility for driving the story sort of ended with her. Like making the offhand reference about Norm that exposes him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very weird. Very weird.
Choices were made.
Yes. It did make me start wondering, how good is Norm at his job, do we think? Do we think, like, everyone turns on Sam? I'm kind of siding with Sam on this one. Yeah. When you go from paying a couple of grand to getting 15 grand back, that's a big difference. I don't know about that one. And I also don't know about hiring a friend to do my taxes.
I wouldn't.
Like, he's all up in your money. That feels weird.
I thought Sam had I thought this was a great Ted Danson week because I thought he had in some ways the most complex kind of line to walk and was really successful throughout. I kept kind of coming down on his side. Like, of course he cares about Norm. And that's sort of like the arc of the episode is like realizing exactly how much he cares about Norm and how he can accommodate his friend, but at the same time, like wanting to protect his business and livelihood.
Yeah. which is the place that all these people need to be together.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, if he goes to jail for taxes, which he wouldn't, but like if suddenly he has to start paying back money with interest and the bar's in trouble, you all are screwed. I don't know if you realize that. Yeah. Oh yeah, Diane's line, reduced to working in a kitchen. I really hated. Really hated.
This was you know what though? It's not that I'm forgiving. It's just that this was definitely a different time when the power of a dollar, if you will, was different, and attitudes were different about working class jobs, because I'm putting it in the context of the Reagan era 80s, when certain people were painted as quote unquote welfare queens. Black people didn't even qualify they couldn't even qualify for welfare until like long after the programs were established.
Yeah.
So who's actually been, there's a whole history on it. There's books, and I'm blanking on some of the facts, but like, this is the Gordon Gekko era, the Reagan era, when we were fed this whole myth of trickle down economics, and the economy was starting to boom in spite of horrible, horrible, horrible things going on in that administration and policy changes. So I think this was a time in which it was culturally acceptable to look down on the people who kept the world running.
Yeah.
Because certain people had a little bit more access to jobs that were not in their minds menial in any kind of way. So I think this reflected the attitudes of the time.
As someone who had a job as a dishwasher, let me assure you, Norm was underpaid. Norm should have been making a lot of money. If you've never had a job as a dishwasher, that is the hardest job I ever had. Whew. I mean, not just gross, but like you are under a time crunch the whole time because the whole kitchen is depending on your speed. So the waiters are kind of frustrated with you if you can't get everything out fast enough. And you're just like, okay, but I got to get these things clean because people are putting this in their mouths.
Yeah.
So all this has to be clean.
By hand.
And I got to get it through.
Then.
Yeah.
Yeah, by hand, right?
No, we had, I'm not that old. We had a dishwasher.
No. But you had, but like in terms of scraping and then.
Right? So you just had to have the fire going under the water. No, we had a dishwasher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you had to scrape in some cases by hand.
Yes, that is true. That is fair. Yeah, we had to, if there was a lot of food on there, you had to scrape it off into the trash can. You had to put it in there. You had to rinse it. Oh, yeah. Ugh, I can still smell that dishwashing room.
That's a very particular smell.
Yeah.
But at that time, would Melville's have had a dishwashing system like that? The appliance?
Even now, what he was doing is what you do now.
Yeah.
In an industrial kitchen, which is you're getting the dishes, you're still, scraping all the food off, you're rinsing it, you're putting it into the dishwasher. There's someone on the other end taking them out and potentially maybe not hand drying them, although at the time you probably had to. And depending on how busy it was, you're taking them all, you're bringing them back out to the center of the kitchen, you're racking them for the wait staff to get everything out again, and for the kitchen staff and the cooks. So, I mean, once you had a dishwasher, technology hasn't advanced much beyond that. So the process at that time was pretty much what it is now. Yeah, that was a tough job.
Jeez.
And weird that, like, not to like come back to this point from before, but like, it's weird that everybody, that job is viewed with such skepticism by everybody, but nobody gives Norm shit for spending his unemployment at this bar for the past year.
Weird.
There's no judgment there. I mean, obviously Cheers is not going to go there in 1984 or whatever, but like that double standard, when viewed against, like you're talking about, Tookie, with the stereotype of the welfare queen, this guy who's been, spending his government's check at this bar for the past 11 months or whatever is not called into question at all is a fascinating double standard.
Yeah. Yep. Real quick, Dave, any thoughts on Cy the accountant?
That's just, like this episode was filled with so much casual sexism and racism. Like just I loved the central arc of it with Norm and Sam, but then there were just all of these little polyps that just kept like growing off of it. And yeah, like that was just such an unnecessary, like there was no need for it to be named Cy.
He couldn't have been Jim. Yeah, the wimpy accountant who wouldn't take chances had to be Cy.
It could just be your accountant called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor called.
Good Lord.
There was that moment. There was the weird sorority Diane story.
Whoa.
Oh, that was uncomfortable. You know, I like this episode, but god damn, there was so much wrong with it.
Isn't it weird? I feel like that the scene between Sam and Norm carries a ton of water for this episode.
Yeah.
Like that scene where you see how important they are to each other, where you see Norm feeling all the feels in front of Sam and Sam realizing what it means to him. Like it's so well played. It was so funny in the moment too and touching that you kind of forget all the weirdness getting up to that moment.
There's a ton. There's that Great White Hunter thing that Cliff does.
Yeah.
Oof. Oh, like really just so like uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird.
We didn't know, Trevor and I, when watching this episode together, I was like, what did Cliff just say? And what was that accent? So we had to look up Great White Hunter. And I was like, did he just say wanna? Because that's white people aren't supposed to say that. So
and it dropped like a stone with the audience too.
Oh yeah.
That was the one of the sections that made me wonder, did Cliff have more there and it went so badly they edited it out? I don't know. I do want to thank that audience for the appropriate response of dead silence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching this on a borrowed Hulu password with the commercials, and I've never been more grateful for that hard cut to a Walgreens commercial.
Yeah. Yep. By the way, any pet owners, if you have a dog that likes to have something on, I recommend Hulu, because your cable station or Netflix will say, hey, you haven't done anything in a while. You done watching? Should we stop? Should we turn this off? Hulu wants that ad money. So if you leave it on Hulu, Hulu's going to play as long as your dog needs.
I respect that non-judgment from Hulu. Like I don't need you. I don't need Netflix checking to see if I'm alive. Like I'm fine. I mean, I'm not fine, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
Netflix.
I'm enjoying Cheers. Okay, Netflix.
Like, yeah, I had a mother, Netflix, and I'm processing that, so I don't need you.
Very, very rude of them to insert themselves into your life like that.
I have a narrow window for what I need from Netflix, and that isn't it.
I am watching on Peacock now. I've switched over from Hulu to Peacock. I still have Hulu, but I feel like on Peacock, the things that are on both, I feel like the commercial breaks are shorter on Peacock. I don't know if that's my imagination or not. I haven't broken this down scientifically, but I have felt like they're a little shorter and there are fewer of them.
I'll take a pass by Peacock.
Yeah.
I watched Fast 5 on Peacock. For reasons.
You know, I think I've told you this. I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie.
You're better for it.
Okay. I wasn't sure. It seemed like something I would dig.
I watched the
first one, and halfway through, I was like, I don't know.
No, the first one is ass. I rated it a -12. It's open ass. No, you're yeah. I was told that 5 and 6 is when it starts to get.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Although there are people who ride hard for Tokyo Drift, I have learned.
Our good friend Jer Palapal. Big
Yeah.
Tokyo Drift enthusiast.
Yep.
That people that ride hard for Tokyo Drift seem to be the same kind of people that are like, listen, I know you don't like IPAs, but there's this one. You know, like, so it's always like a real kind of niche market. They're like cricket fans, you know?
Yeah, they're the people who keep showing you like, hey, I know how to get Heady Topper. Which I don't even know, is that an IPA? I don't even know beers well enough to know what that is.
It is. It's,
okay.
And it's delightful.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not an IPA person, but I do like that one.
Yeah. Heady Topper is that beer that I always hear about, even though I don't drink beer. Like somehow I know that Heady Topper is like what people drive to Vermont for.
Yeah. It's what, Mike, you know that story because I've told it on stage, the Bachelorette weekend in Vermont.
Yes.
We got a crate of Heady Topper. I didn't touch it, but we got a crate. They got a crate to share in the Airbnb. And
Nice.
for all the years that I've heard of it, that was the first time seeing it. And I was just still like, I don't get it.
I don't know, but people enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to talk people out of happiness. So more power to you, Heady Topper lovers. All right, let's start getting into some categories here. Joke of the week. I'm going to lead because I've been teasing this since the beginning. My joke of the week is earlier on, Sam says, oh, Bell Day, where he's trying to cover up beside the accountant calling. And later on, when Sam and Norm are fighting, and Coach says so sincerely, will you stop it? Look at what you're doing. You're making a mockery out of Bell Day. And I love it.
That's where I spotted my second person of color this episode. Behind
Nice.
Coach.
I spotted it. Yeah. Earlier on, there is a person of color up by the piano.
Yes.
I noticed. Yep. So we've got at least 2 this week.
Yes.
The definitely not offsetting the detriments that this episode the writing did.
No. But you're making a mockery out of Bell Day. I have said at random times with other people, and no one's gotten it, and I refuse to explain it. If you don't get it, fine. I'm not telling you. But just know you're missing out. But yeah, there have been a couple of times when people have been arguing, and I've said, stop it, look at yourselves. You're making a mockery out of Bell Day.
So beautifully acted in that moment by America's greatest thespian.
God bless him.
R.I.P. the goat.
All right, Tookie, your joke of the week, please.
All those cats. That was so funny to me. All those cats.
They were great.
The
It was great.
There's so many cats.
And it was so many more than you could reasonably have expected.
Cats.
Like, what kind of feral wasteland was Boston in 1984?
There was
that
so
many cats. And you just know they kept running that, and then George Wendt said, "That's enough."
Yeah.
And Jim Burrows said, "A few more cats."
Okay.
We're gonna run that again. I just want a few more cats.
In one of the few instances in which I have ever related directly to Norm Peterson, I worked reception for a fish wholesaler for like almost a year out on the seaport, like because the building was the freezer above our office right on a dock. And it was the year that the tall shapes came to town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I could see them from like the office window. It was really, really cool. But I worked reception, and my chair with the other receptionist was right underneath the freezer. So I'd come home smelling like halibut from time to time, but I never brought home a swarm of cats. Like that was just so, I don't know why that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen on Cheers.
It was great.
So many cats.
That was a masterfully utilization of the stairs, which have been pretty underutilized so far. That was a really great way to use that
It was just
that
so
set.
many live cats. Like, where did all these
And they're
cats?
wedged between the window and the stairs. Yeah.
So many. I'd never seen that many. It was just
many.
oh man, too good.
Yeah, that's got to be the record for live cats on a network TV show, right?
Probably.
You'd think. I don't know. We can call the Guinness people.
Oh, that shit was funny.
Dave, your joke of the week, sir.
This made me laugh each time. It's so stupid, but when Cliff is, I really liked it. I liked when Cliff was had the chalkboard. I like when they came out of the office and Cliff is talking about DNA on the chalkboard. It's sexist, but I love the visual gag of him having gotten a chalkboard and is going through like the model of DNA. And then at the end, when he looks at it and turns it on his side and says, "Let's talk about the gas turbine engine for a while." Because it does look like a gas turbine engine when you turn a DNA helix on its side. I don't know. That moment just cracked me up both times I watched it. I loved it. It's a stupid combination of a written joke and a dumb visual gag, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a joke that got written on set too. When they actually got the blackboard and he's futzing with it and he says, on the side, what if we tried this? Like after we've got it, let's do another take where I do this at the end. Yeah. Good joke.
I feel like there's probably a lot of instances of John Ratzenberger suggesting jokes that probably go poorly, as we cited earlier in this episode. I'd like maybe so this might be one in his plus column where maybe he said, let's give this a shot.
I don't want to know what Cliff thinks RNA means.
Nor I.
Nope.
No. Because if this whole time, if I never knew that like DNA was the scientific version or the scientific full name of women be shopping, but like, I wasn't ready for that kind of education this week.
Thank you, Cliff Clavin.
Yeah,
I was glad to see an episode that was on some level about toxic masculinity, that it did like actually pay off in, behind closed doors, showing us what actual male love looks like in a fairly honest and like touching way. Like I really didn't expect George Wendt to have the gear that he had, but he kind of had it throughout the whole episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It was there. It was supported. That's why that scene was so good. I mean, he plays it and you don't realize though he's playing it up until then, until the payoff is there. And you're like, oh yeah, this is all justified. This is a solid earned payoff.
Yeah.
He's really nice.
He's snippy. He's disappointed. And like when everybody's saying like he's carrying the weight of this year's worth of failure on his shoulders, like he's legitimately acting that. And it was a gear I don't think we've seen from him. Like we don't get it in the accountancy episode in season 1. And it was it was a real, like, it really is the saving grace of this episode.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We've touched on a little bit. Tookie, how white was this week's episode?
On a scale of mayonnaise to aioli, which is just a little seasoned. This was a pretty white leaning episode. I did, Mike, you and I did spot the same person by the piano, so that's win. I spotted a woman behind Diane at one point on the bench seats by the door, so that's 2. And then the man, I'm not sure if he was black, but he was definitely not. He was definitely a person of color behind Coach during the "You're Making a Mockery Out of Belle Day" scene. So three people of color this episode. Nice. Yeah, not bad. A couple pepperings, but not quite aioli.
4 cheers. Now I want aioli.
Always want aioli.
All right. Dave, what was your 80s moment of the week?
I you know what? I'll go with the I'm going to go with the transistor radio. That was like a real, I remember having a similar radio, which is to say, a small black plastic box with an antenna.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There is something kind of wonderful about those devices as ways of getting some connection to the outside world. They're as simple can be. A single speaker and a couple of dials. It's nostalgia is a toxic impulse, and I don't want to go backwards, but there was something kind of perfect about a transistor radio where you weren't expecting it to sound good. You just wanted to hear a song you liked, or a Red Sox game, or just the voice of somebody other than the people you lived with. I like a transistor radio.
That was very much a baseball radio too. That was like the radio you carried into the ballpark so you could hear the call of the game when you really liked it. Like sometimes some people didn't want that, but some people would carry that little transistor radio because they wanted to hear, whoever was in there, and that was your update to everything that was going on. Especially when your team was in a pennant race, you wanted to get those immediate updates, and they would tell you when maybe the scoreboard wouldn't. So yeah.
I think that's I will say that I think that's an underrated way to enjoy a baseball game, is to listen to the radio feed while watching a live baseball game.
Yeah, it's nice. My 80s moment of the week was the woman who comes in to see Sam just to find out, because at that time you would just pop in and be like, well, let me see what this person's relationship status is, and I'll figure out what's going on. That was what you had to come in and get rejected in person. You couldn't look that up. You couldn't text them. You just needed to come in and be like, hey, still happening or no?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, you could call them on the phone, but maybe you get them, maybe you don't. And in some ways, it's almost more uncomfortable. And you feel like if you show up, well, maybe it's harder for them to say no. There you go. Tookie, your 80s moment of the week?
I had quite a few this episode. Okay, so Cuddy Rocks. Never heard that before. Had to look that up. That's a type of whiskey. And apparently it was very popular.
Jimmy orders Cuddy and water, I believe, in Goodfellas. That's Jimmy's drink. Yeah. Jimmy the Dent.
There's a funny Richard Pryor joke about Cuddy as well, where he was talking about how that there will occasionally be African Americans will sometimes order an obscure drink, and he cites Cuddy and orange juice as the example.
Ooh, all right, that's a choice. Yeah, so I hadn't heard Cuddy Rocks before, and I was like, oh, maybe it was popular at that time. The visor that Norm wears when he's going to crunch numbers was very much a trope and very much a thing of a certain time. It was definitely like a nugget. The reference to Great White Hunter. Yeah, that I was like, ooh, that was a choice. That was a choice. That's vocabulary that got phased out. The somewhat acceptability of someone who looks like Cliff doing a pseudo African accent.
Oof.
Very much a nugget of that time, because it aired and no one had a problem with it. So I'm like, that's an 80s moment. Yeah. But I think the number one 80s moment for me is when Carla says, pulling a boner.
Very 80s. Very 80s.
Which sitcom featured a best friend named Boner? Was that
Growing Pains?
Was that Growing Pains?
Growing Pains.
Yeah.
That must have been the last non-ironic use of the word boner.
Yeah, I had to bother poor Kirk Cameron once he turned. Kirk Cameron getting poor Julie McCullough fired. Yeah, at some point we'll just delve into everything Kirk Cameron did to just ruin that poor show. Ugh. Do we know what I'm talking about here?
No.
Oh, and Growing Pains. So Kirk Cameron is very famous now for being like a born-again Christian and proselytizing and all that stuff. And you know, when he started growing pains, he was not. And then during the show, he became born again and started really like, oh yeah.
We don't know what happened.
So he had a love interest on the show, Julie McCullough, who was really good on the show. And there was this really great relationship where she started out as the nanny to the baby, and he was always hitting on her. And then she saw him with the baby and how sweet he was and how much he loved his little baby sister. And suddenly she liked him, and they were going to get married. It was this very big arc. And he had her written off the show because she had been in Playboy. Said, nope, absolutely not. Yeah, and because he supposedly was going to have a key to her apartment, Kirk Cameron called the writers pornographers. It's growing pains. Growing pains. And Alan Thicke had to tell him, listen, I respect your faith, but if we are too spicy for you, you really can't be on network TV anymore, Kirk. We are as safe a TV show as you have out there. Yeah.
I remember encountering, very tame stories about Kirk Cameron's faith in things like, maybe Dynamite magazine or something when I was, a young person, and did not like. I remember it's one of the first times I remember thinking like, oh, there are religious people in the world that influences their job. Like it was very strange to see like Jesus referenced in like a fan magazine.
Yeah.
It was interesting. And I feel like so many because I knew born again people in the theater community, and they were awesome. Like they were just like, yeah, we're going to do this play and we're going to do that. And like no judgment. And I like at least one of them said, yeah, Kirk Cameron really hurt us. It's like, we're not all Kirk. Part of it's just because Kirk could afford to be Kirk.
Well,
like he just had enough money to judge everybody.
Is Candace okay?
I think Candace is also born again, but in a very nice way.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard anything bad about Candace. Okay. I have also not been listening. So if anyone is out there who's like, hey, Candace did this, I apologize, and I did not know, and I am not doing PR for Candace. Okay. I'm just saying, I've gotten in trouble on podcasts before, and I'm not pretending that I know everything about Candace Cameron Bure. Okay. Thank you.
She's on the Fuller House, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. She's having. I've sort of watched that from other rooms as my daughters consumed it, mm-hmm. And I find her actually one of the sort of best parts of that show in what I've seen. So I hope she's treating everybody with the requisite respect.
As do I.
Yes.
And speaking of treating everyone with the requisite respect, the Sam creepy quotient for the week. How creepy was Sam Malone this particular week? Does anyone want to jump in with a thought?
I just want to know what Diane almost did to his butthole.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
It has to.
It's such a weird moment of not only what this guy who's supposedly had sex with tens of thousands of women apparently does not want touched, but what is Diane wanting to touch that he needs to say no? Like, wow, we are learning some surprising things about Sam and Diane this week.
Yeah.
Is that a pube joke that comes in earlier with Carla when she makes the peroxide comment? And
I was wondering that. Yeah.
And Sam's like, oh no, he mouths, it's real, right?
I think.
And then she seems to sort of make a vomity face. Like it felt like they were kind of like trying to pull the car over a couple of feet before the network censors grabbed it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't think of what else they might be talking about.
I can't think of another reading of that line. So I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah, not cool for him to share that information. I mean, I guess maybe at that time, like it's like, no, it's real. Like it's better to share that information and validate that she is a natural blonde somehow. I don't know, but it's weird.
Yeah,
it's all weird. And Sam, whatever you're like, just try it. Like if Diane is doing a lot for you. If this is something she really wants to experience,
Oh,
give
I
it a whirl,
agree.
buddy.
She might have almost touched his gooch. I won't get into further detail about what that is. This is a family show.
Okay.
But she might have that's what it is. I think she might have touched his gooch. Okay.
And can you name the TV show that had a character named the Gooch?
Different Strokes.
Yes. Man, those sitcom writers, they knew. They knew what they were doing. Boner and the Gooch. Come on.
So I
Just
feel like
acknowledge it, sitcoms.
I feel like Sam being clear about what he wants and doesn't want like lowers his creepy quotient, but him sharing intimate information about Diane's hair like raises the creepy quotient. So
Yeah.
like I feel like in a generally low episode, those two things kind of balance themselves out, and I guess I come out like a 3.5.
I was gonna say like a strong 6. Strong 6.
I think those two things balance each other out. How do we feel about him potentially walking Landmark out to the car?
Only
A little weird, right?
as a matter of respect. I mean, we know
Yeah.
Diane is the jealous type, but as a matter of respect on his part, he could have just sent her on her way. Yeah.
Walking out to the car is a little much. I'm going to give him a 5. I like a 5.2.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's weird stuff going on.
I will. I knock him down a 0.5 point for navigating Coach's "Are you just happy to see me?" joke gracefully.
Fair point. Fair point. Yeah, a little spice from Coach.
And another wonderful example of Coach doing human behavior in a way that no human has ever done it.
Yeah.
And but you believe it. I buy it. There's never a point where I was like, Coach wouldn't do that.
Nope.
Nope.
So weirdly specific.
I like it. All right. Any final thoughts on No Help Wanted?
There was a lot wrong with this episode, but in terms of what saved it for me is, the story arc of Norm and Sam, because it made sense. The plot made sense. The peripheral stuff, keep it. And the cats, like. So this is what made the episode bottom of the best, top of the middle for me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think the heart really carries a lot of what's wrong and somehow makes a lot of what's wrong almost feel like it was serving a purpose because it gets to this place. And the fact that you hear this environment where it's hard for these guys to have these feelings and share this with each other, it pops a little bit more in that moment. So yeah, and I'm not saying all the stuff was okay, clearly, but at the same time, like I get what it was building towards, and the payoff was really good. So yeah, it's towards the middle of the top half for me. I like what was good enough that it really carried a lot of weight for me.
Yeah, that last scene, I know we keep coming back to it, but there really is a wonderful moment where the audience isn't sure tonally what's happening.
Yeah.
When Norm breaks down, because it's a little funny and he does that kind of fun flip onto the couch and then the floor, but he doesn't play it entirely for laughs, and everybody's kind of unsure what they're going for, and they kind of sit in that discomfort for a little bit, and it makes it really, really interesting. And then when Sam like cries a little bit, it feels earned and not just a way to get to the tissue joke. And that chunk is going to be the thing that I think I'll hang with. And yeah, I think this is in a weird up and down season. This is probably like bottom of the top. I think Tookie, you're exactly right. It's like bottom of the top of the middle.
All right, there you go. Season 2, episode 14 or 13. I thought this was 13.
I think this is 14. This is 14.
My apologies. I misnumbered it earlier on.
Oh.
214. There you go. No help wanted. It was a good one. All right. Uh, we missed some real Celtics news
Oh
while
yeah.
folks were in Florida.
Is Philly
Oh,
okay
yeah.
though? Is the city of Philly okay? Because
Sorry,
some
I had
people
COVID.
stomped. There was footage of people just like stomping out a Ben Simmons jersey.
I've never
There's a
felt
lot going on in basketball.
I have never felt smaller than the joy I felt in watching the 76ers get eliminated. Like, I know I'm just a small human being and I have friends in Philadelphia and I want the best for them, but I can't discount the sheer joy I felt.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd never seen a jersey get jumped like it was an actual person, but okay.
Right?
But that's Philly. That's the kind of energy.
It was so good. And they got to make such big changes now. And it's like suddenly every team is the Celtics. It was crazy. And like everyone's upheaval. Al Horford's coming back.
Oh.
That's a big moment. It's hard to lose Kemba because I love the guy. But Al Horford coming back, he's really good for this team. He loved the city. Anna Horford coming back with Big Al. Very important for the city of Boston. That's a good first move.
Mm-hmm.
I love Kemba. I really do. But it became really clear that you can't have Kemba on a team that's going to go deep in the playoffs. Like Toronto really showed the blueprint for what you do when Kemba's on the floor. When you're playing them every night, you just keep attacking Kemba. And I'm not even sure his knee's not going to be fully healthy again. And even a fully healthy Kemba, I'm not sure you can go deep in the playoffs with when you can exploit him defensively that much. So I hate it, but that might have been a move you just had to make.
I think it's I read some analysis which I can't remember how to attribute it at this point, but even like at 100% healthy, Kemba is not a great fit next to the place that the Jays are now. You know, he needs
they didn't
the
think
ball.
the Jays were going to be this good this fast when they got Kemba. I'm convinced.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If they had known that, especially Jalen was going to be this good a scorer at this point, they would not have gotten a guy who is a pure scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just, that's not what you need next to these two guys. You need an Al Horford. You need a guy who's like, look, I'll shoot when you need me to, but I don't have to. He's great at finding the open man. He's a great interior passer. If his knee holds up, that's a strong move. That is a strong move. Now, the big question, would you gamble on getting Ben Simmons on the Celtics?
Not after the way I saw his jersey get stomped the F out.
I am in the minority on this. I understand that. I am still a guy who will gamble on Ben Simmons. You need to build around him. And I think teammates like Jalen, you've got three perfect teammates for Ben Simmons right now in Jason, Jalen, and Al Horford. You have to surround Ben Simmons with shooting. You have to. But if you've got four shooters and you don't need him to shoot, and you get him in a place where Embiid's not clogging the lane and keeping him from doing the things that he does best, now you've got a real weapon. You got a guy who was all NBA 1 year ago, who is still first team all defense NBA this year. The things he can do, like there's no other package quite like that guy who can defend a point guard and a center really well in the same possession. Like that just doesn't happen very often. And he's got such great court vision. When Embiid's not there, he gets triple doubles all the time. I'm willing to gamble on that guy, getting him out of that environment and saying, look, we're building this team around you exactly the way that you can. And it's a rare opportunity to potentially get that third all-star you need while his value is at an all-time low.
I have great respect for people that can ride unicycles. Yeah. And like, I'm sure there's a top of the line unicycle, but I don't want a unicycle in my garage. Like I'm glad they exist. I'm glad people, I want to see somebody figure out how to like make a unicycle part of a great unicycle fleet. But I'm content to not have to sort of do that extra math. I'm perfectly content to get a decent bicycle.
But this is a bicycle that did a lot of work. I mean, he's been really good. It's just a bad fit with him and Embiid.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's a terrible fit. I can't stop thinking about how good he looks when he's not next to Joel Embiid.
Like, if I'm going to get a unicycle, if I have to bring a unicycle in, I would like a low-end unicycle. I don't want to spend...
He's not a unicycle.
I don't want to spend a third of my salary cap on the unicycle.
He's not a unicycle. He's a nice bicycle cruiser, which is going to do a lot of work for you. It's going to look great in a lot of ways. Just don't ask it to be a mountain bike. That's all.
Give me Tony Allen.
It's supposed to be. Would you trade Marcus Smart, Tristan Thompson, and two?
I'm trading Tristan.
Ben Simmons? Yes, Ben Simmons is. I mean, Tristan is filler. He's there to get the numbers right. But would you make that deal? Marcus Smart, Tristan Thompson, and 2 first-round picks.
Only if Ben Simmons is coming to play 4 and 5. If it's like he's playing point guard, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
where his value is as a point guard, because if he's a center, like now you got to pass the ball to him all the time, and he's getting hacked, and you're in the Shaquille problem. When he's the point guard and he's at the top of the key, when he's running the offense, you've got all the shooters, and he can find all the scorers, bringing it up and make that work. I feel like he's going to be more effective as the point guard who can switch on to everybody.
I love it when a point guard can at any point shoot a ball.
It's a weakness. It's an issue.
I mean, it is half of the game.
What's the over-under on how long it takes for Malcolm Gladwell to go on Bill Simmons' podcast and suggest the trade and that Ben Simmons needs to start shooting free throws underhanded?
What's the over-under on the amount of time that if that starts playing, I'll almost shove this screwdriver into my ear hole?
Yeah. But I'm telling you, it's coming. So every time somebody has a problem with the free throws, and I'm not even sure they're wrong, but you can count on it that someone's coming out of the woodwork saying, you know who he needs to work with? Rick Barry. He needs to start shooting underhand free throws. I'm telling you, it's coming. I'm not saying anyone needs to work with Rick Barry. I'm saying somebody's going to say it.
The NBA player that does shoot free throws underhand is going to be a pioneer, and I'm going to support that player 100%.
Yeah. Them I will. I just don't want Malcolm Gladwell getting credit for it.
No, absolutely not. Get out of here. You weird Canadian.
Oh, Gladwell. Oh, Gladwell. Who do we want coaching?
Hours of these.
Have our minds changed at all about coaches for the Celtics? I'm still Carol Lawson. I'm surprised she hasn't gotten talked about quite so much the last week or so.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Agreed.
But there's been no, after the initial talk about it, there was never a comment coming out saying, nope, she's not interested. There's been plenty of time for her to smack that down, and it has not occurred.
If the hiring of Stevens is any indication, it's going to be silent until there's a decision.
Is there, I say this thinking this is the tiniest possibility, is there a chance this has been quiet because they were waiting to see what happened with Doc Rivers, and they're going to try to bring him back? Is there any chance that was happening?
Keep walking, Doc. I've had enough. I've seen it. At a certain point, I think Doc got really. I think he had a great team that year with Boston in 2008, and I think he had an amazing defense. And I think his teams universally have great defenses, but never quite as good as he had when Thibodeau was here. And his teams always underperform on offense. And no, thank you to Doc Rivers.
Same.
Yeah, it's funny. I love Doc so much, and I would love for him to bring the emotional leadership that he brings to a locker room to this team. I feel like that would be strong. But yeah, we got 10 years of evidence now that you don't want Doc leading your guys into a game 7. And after a year where our offense really struggled to figure out who they were, it's hard for me to say Doc's the guy to take that over and fix it.
I mean, the Clippers underperformed on offense with Chris Paul and peak Blake Griffin. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
Thanks for the championship. Nothing but love, but no, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything was possible.
And just to watch what's happened with Chris Paul getting out of those environments.
Man.
Yeah.
Man.
How good he's been. I hope that guy gets to play.
Yeah.
Ugh. Man. Chris Paul. By the way, are we giving any credence to the curse of Lucky? That Kyrie stomped on Lucky with his left foot, and in the next series went down to the left ankle sprain and could not play again. This is starting to make the rounds. Any credence? Any credence?
I don't know how they're going to dig up a Babe Ruth piano equivalent to that. But good luck to that man and his karma.
Karma's real. But does anyone enjoy the idea of curses more than sports writers? You could be like deep in Louisiana country, like the home of voodoo, and no one believes in curses, especially like Northeast sports writers. It's amazing. They will jump onto everything and call it a curse. I mean, Shaughnessy's already started at least a novella about this, right?
I mean, it's amazing to look at a team like the Mets and try to ascribe a curse to what is obviously just atrocious management.
Yeah.
The Red Sox have lived in the same house for any number of decades.
It's true. It's true. All right.
Yeah. I think anytime you see a curse, like you can like dig a little deeper and find an incompetent white man somewhere to blame.
It doesn't take too much digging with the Mets, does it?
No, it does not. You will know them by their trail of
and
incompetent white men.
More than one. All right. Before we wrap it up, big weekend for Ms. Tookie Kavanaugh. If you don't know, it is a big thing to headline the Granddaddy Club of Boston, Knicks in the Theater District, and that is what Tookie Kavanaugh is doing this week. I don't care what you're doing. You guys all need to stop your other stupid plans and get tickets to Knicks and go and hear the headliner crush this granddaddy of a room. Tookie, how you feeling about this weekend?
Terrible.
Awesome.
It's gonna be a time. I'm excited to see my name in the marquee, though. That's fun. That'll be fun. That'll be really fun. You'll be there. Wink, wink.
I'm coming in on Friday to dull the excitement just a bit. I'm the bicarbonate of soda before things get really exciting.
Oh, it'll be good. It'll be grand. It'll be great.
Friday night, yeah, my first time on stage since March 13th of last year.
Jeez.
Yep, first time grabbing a microphone. We'll see what happens. We'll see. But I am a tiny part of what is Tookie's big weekend.
It still counts. It's a big part.
But it's your weekend. It's like you gotta make sure you get there. You gotta get the picture of you under the marquee. Like it's a cool moment.
I hate having my picture taken too, so I'm gonna up the skincare regimen for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So that there's no grease when I'm posed.
You know what's great now though is with the iPhones you get the color shot and the black and white shot.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is about that section. It looks great in black and white. Mm-hmm. It's all whatever it is about the contrast of the buildings there. It really pops. So make sure you get one in color and one in black and white. and it's a nice thing. It is a nice thing, and everyone get your tickets. How do people get tickets, Tookie?
NixComedyStop.com.
There you go. That's all you have to do. What more are you people looking for? Just go to NixComedyStop.com. You've been typing in things like that since '98. Just go there, put your credit card in, buy some tickets, and be happy for the weekend. And that's all you got to do. All right, Dave, have you got anything to promote?
I'm going to be performing with the Empire Review this Sunday at Prospect Terrace in Providence, a beautiful park overlooking the city. So
that's a great spot to see a show.
It's a gorgeous spot. We're going to be doing it at 4:00 on Sunday. Tickets are available through Eventbrite if you search for Empire Review, or we can take them at the door. It's going to be a gorgeous night, about an hour and a half in a really kind of jewel of the city. If you want to see me pretend to be a statue of Roger Williams, this is your opportunity to do so.
Empire Review, if folks don't know, like comedy variety shows, not stand-up, although there's often some stand-up featured upon it, but it's kind of it's an eclectic mix of comedic things that's always really fun and interesting and unique. They never do the same thing twice. So really fun.
It'll be at the very least, it'll be a cool time to hang out outside, play some music. We'll see a couple sketches. It'll be a hoot.
Nice.
If anybody wants to hear me sing a song, you can hear me singing a song on the John Hodgman, the Judge John Hodgman podcast a couple weeks ago. I submitted a song for a contest that sounded like a cool songwriting challenge. So that got featured a couple weeks ago.
That's amazing. How am I just hearing about this now?
God.
It sort of popped up out of nowhere. So I think maybe 2 episodes ago, you can hear it at the very end.
Dave's going to share the link on the Facebook page. So everybody check this out. Yes.
I'll pop it on there.
Thank you.
It's tangentially connected to famous Bostonian Josh Gondelman, who co-hosted the episode of the podcast that where the song challenge was issued. So nice. I'm now one more New Englander with a degree of separation from Josh Gondelman.
He's a lovely, lovely fellow.
I've never heard anything but raves about him.
He's a great guy. All right. If you catch Tookie on Friday, I will be on Saturday. So I will be there on Friday. On Saturday night, I'm going to be at the reopening of the Comedy Studio, which is not at the Comedy Studio. It is at Vera's in Union Square, Somerville. You can go to thecomedystudio.com, get tickets. I'm just going to be doing a 10-minute spot. Both shows is an 8 p.m. and a 10 p.m. So whatever you're doing, so you can go on Friday and then come on Saturday. If you are like a brave night owl person, you can really have the perfect night and go and see Tookie at 8 and then bop on over to Somerville and catch that late show, because Nick's usually they become a dance club afterwards. So there's usually a hard out at 9:30. So you'll have perfect timing to get out of there, grab your Uber and scoot on over to Union Square, because Rick never starts the Comedy Studio show until 12 minutes after. So you're going to have a solid 42 minutes to get over there. And then Rick's going to tell jokes for a while, and you can come in during Rick's spot. So really, you can have almost 49 minutes to get there with no problem. So you should be okay. But I also know that people who tend to enjoy me are probably in bed at that time. So no judgment. And if you're going to catch something, catch Tookie. But if you want to do something else, I'm also around. So there you go. That's the weekend. We're actually getting out of our houses and doing stuff again.
We're doing it.
It's happening.
It's craziness. At some point, we're going to have to do one of these in person someday. And not the jazz singer. We're not going to make Tookie do that.
Thank you.
We're not going to do that.
Thank you for helping me preserve what's left of my sanity.
Honestly, there's a part of me that's not even super comfortable bringing up the jazz singer myself had you not brought that up again. Like, had you not reintroduced it, the jazz singer is uncomfortable enough that I'm like, I don't know that I can introduce the jazz singer even for comedic purposes. So yeah, that is totally in your court. The jazz singer will not appear again unless you decide you want to engage in some jazz singer humor.
Tookie is the living gate between us and discussion of the jazz singer.
That's exactly right. She's the jazz singer Stargate.
My God. My God.
You're the nexus into the entry that is the world of Neil Diamond's The Jazz Singer.
You act like if you bring it up somehow organically out of nowhere, you're going to get sent to the phantom zone. Like, it's not.
I'm going to get in trouble. It's going to turn back around on me. I just know it.
This is
I'm
what
going
gets
to
you
get
canceled.
a DM just going, Tookie's too nice to say anything, but you keep putting this on her and it's not okay. Do you realize what it is to put this upon Tookie every week? And I'm like, but I didn't. Tookie brought it up. All right, I suck. Fine. I'm sorry.
You know what's going to get me canceled? Did I ever tell you guys what's going to get me canceled?
No, it's getting you canceled.
A couple years ago, I tweeted out something that's going to get me canceled by the moms.
Oh, you
which
don't want to
is
get canceled by the moms.
no, the moms are going to cancel me because I tweeted that Grimace is Thanos with a third Y chromosome, which isn't even a real condition. But I know the moms are going to come for me.
I'm not even sure how to how to begin parking my car in the parking lot around this.
Nope. Not exploring it. You can send all DMs not to the Norm Facebook page, but you can seek out Tookie's actual page and you can message her directly. Moms of the internet. All right. All right. Now that I pulled out that pin and tossed this to Tookie, I am Mike. That's Tookie. That's Dave. We're going to be here next week with episode 15. Stay safe, everybody. We'll miss you desperately. Goodbye.
Uh-oh, Dave.
Where'd Dave go?
Where did Dave go? Oh, no.
Oh, Davey.
All right. Well, I guess that's the show.